because I feel like I'd be a bad host if I didn't bring it up. Do you feel like this was just a bump in the road for TSM? Because they did go 3-0 last week. They did look like one of the strongest teams, and I think one of us said like they were going to be the main competitor to Cloud9 by the end of the split. I'm interested in what your thoughts there too.
So I think that TSM in general is a team that is always going to have like really good weeks and really bad weeks because they don't have solid fundamentals to fall back on. Like when you see them have a game that does not go smoothly, like what do? They just start Baron a million times and then hope they win the game. They just like keep on starting Baron, but they don't even have like good Baron starting fundamentals. When you watch like RNG and MSI, it's very clear that they have systems in place to determine how to like do a Baron, right? Where it's like they're factoring in who needs to tank it, how much damage do we do, are we turning? If we are turning, who's gonna turn on what ability at what point? Like all those questions are answered almost instantly. And everyone just kind of like falls into line. And we have a clip here we can show on the Parsec where it just shows like how TSM approaches Barons. So if you look at like this example that we brought up, this is like one of the Barons that they do at the end where they essentially lose the game. They immediately look at the situation. They know that Licorice has just TP'd, and it feels like the only reason they start off this Baron. Like if I were to pause it and I would like guess what's happening in comms, they just are on the level of like, we're starting this Baron because Viego is bought without TP. That's the only thing they're thinking about. They don't know how fast they're actually going to kill the Baron, how much damage do they deal to the Baron, do they need to turn? And then they don't even like set up a possible turn, right? Like at this point, even with the Baron at 12k life, they've essentially already committed to finishing the Baron as their only option. Because if they were going to turn, they would need Sword Art to be off the Baron, because obviously he's not going to do any damage to the Baron, he's a support. And they would need him like sitting in this brush. They would need to remove the pink ward here and look for like an example of like, okay, this guy is coming in. If they have deep vision, they see somebody coming in and they turn on that. They've already committed to finishing the Baron at 12k. And if you just see like how they play it out, you can tell that they don't even know what to do. Like while it's happening, like they still don't have a plan. Their only plan is like, I guess we're just finishing this Baron, which is like a ridiculous. Yeah, it's a ridiculous thing to do when the Baron is at 12k. And then everyone shows up, and suddenly they're all in the back of the pit against FlyQuest. They're suddenly all in the back of the pit, and they don't even know, like, sort of, it's like, I guess we're trying to turn here. Like, if you ever wanted to turn on a Baron, would you turn on the Baron once the Udyr is in melee range of the Baron? Like, it's so fucking ridiculous to even assume that they had any idea of what they're actually doing here in this Baron. And they're like, okay, we ulted, Leona, Rumble doesn't even block anything, Nocturne suicides in, and you can tell that it's just like a panic situation where like, all right, just try to kill the Baron and everyone leave they can. And they just like lose the game here instantly. I think that this is the main reason why TSM always like looks really good, then looks really bad, is because they don't actually have like any systems in place. So either they are like winning and it's a smooth game and they can just like make easy decisions, or they just like end up trying to like force something because they feel that they're losing and they're like, oh shit, we're against Lulu Kog'Maw, we're losing, we need to do something, we're gonna get outscaled, and they force something like this, and then it just ends up being terrible. Like there's no consistency and there's no like comeback strategies that they have like ingrained in them where they're like, okay, this is like our way to actually abuse TP advantage. Because like starting the Baron is fine. Like starting the Baron is a part of potentially making a comeback play, but it's just like being able to analyze all the other things real time and figure out, okay, so if we do start hitting the Baron in their vision, like what is their response going to be? And then what are we going to do? What are we trying to actually accomplish out of this? Are we killing the Baron? Are we turning? Whatever, all the stuff I just said. So I think that TSM, until they actually figure out like how they want to play these situations, is going to be bad. Also, like I would say that this is just, it's really crazy to me that Sword Art is getting paid like so much money for this. Like this is supposed to be his strength, right? Like this is supposed to be what he's really, really good at. Shot calling, being able to determine what they should do. And don't give me any excuse about his English. His English is perfectly fine. You listen to this guy in interviews, perfectly fine English. He can communicate everything he wants to. I think he literally just doesn't know what to do either.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, this goes into who spearheaded the decision. But yeah, TSM, I wholeheartedly agree. It's really weird because someone in my chat told me that Bjergsen said Sword Art said in an interview that Bjergsen really goes over mid game a lot. But I've now watched all of their pro views except for Sword Art's, and I can't imagine how it's not like a group therapy session on their laning phases.
Yeah. So one thing that I wanted to talk about that I think rebounds off this point. Also, like, yeah, I mean, what I assume happens is they have a bunch of different mid-game issues every time, and Bjergsen will probably be able to look at it and tell them what the right answer is, but they don't really learn from it because they don't actually have like fundamental systems in place, which is part of the reason why when I talk to Nelson, why I respect him so much and why I started like bringing him on shows all the time, because he's somebody that actually has experience working with like a lower tier team in LPL and making them better over time, and like how you can implement systems into a team so that players don't have to like do this whole thing where they don't have to like do the reading comprehension test where they tell you every single time what the actual answer is. They have systems in place that give them some type of basis to fall back on. So like dragon setups where you can be like, okay, 3 minutes before, this is what we do with our top wave. Like, doesn't matter if we die. Like, one thing that Nelson always said, doesn't matter if you die 3 minutes before Drake top wave, you literally suicide push the wave as hard as you can in a lot of situations. You know, like, this isn't obviously applicable in every single situation. There's going to be times where it's bad, but you set up systems where it's like, okay, 1 minute and a half before, like, carries will be able to explain if they're going to be able to reach enough gold for an item that's going to influence the Drake fight. If they can, then then you push the wave, recall, get your item, go to Drake, and then 1 minute before, you set up wards in a certain position, and then you play the situation out from there, right? Like, there's things that you can tell players that can give them something to rely on when they don't have any like actual feel for what they should be doing in the game that will generally be correct. Like, you can create systems for players to play the game so that it makes it easier for them. And I think that a lot of these teams, they have no systems when it comes to how they set up like objectives. Like, how many dragon setups are you going to have to do over the course of a season? How many baron setups are you going to have to do over the course of the season? Like, how do you actually have a structure within a team that you can fall back on? And it feels like almost none of these teams have any structure, any setups, anything that makes them unique at all. It feels like everything is almost completely feel based in the moment. It's like, okay, we're stronger, so we can like control this. Oh, like, this guy's instinct. Oh, this guy stepped too forward. Go on that guy. There's not like the thought in place beforehand. So I feel like that's the biggest thing that's missing from coaches in the LCS is there's no way that they're like trying to like teach calculus or some shit when like really what they need to do is like teach them like the formulas to do algebra. Yeah, exactly.
When it comes to where they would learn that, right? We've hit on practice before, but both of you all had experience in the competitive space. Do you feel like you all had adequate practice of those situations when you were on TL and your time coaching as well, LS?
I mean, so for me, I've been in esports 16, 17 years. It was either learn how to differentiate or offer value to people that were my peers in various game titles, or literally die. Like, I mean, I had $200 to my name and I went into a fucking casino, and if I went broke, I was going to kill myself. Like, I was always on a knife's edge to try to think about ways to accommodate to my situation, or think about ways that I could do things differently from others. And so I was always thinking. And when I was talking to other pro players, whether it be in StarCraft or Hearthstone or like whatever, right, I had to think about things they weren't thinking of in order to offer value to them, but also offer value to myself. I felt like I didn't have a choice but to think about alternative ways to accommodate to situations, come up with things, break down things, process them, etc. So yeah, hope that answers the question for me. I don't know about Dom. I mean, I've said this before, by the way. This isn't anything new. This is in like interviews and like yeah.
I mean, I guess for me to like just go back to like my time on TL. I mean, like this is the reason why I thought Peter was actually like one of the only coaches I ever had that was useful, was that he was able to actually give us some baseline for how we should do things that we could fall back on. And I think that's a major reason. So like people will always look at results of seasons, but they won't realize like how like what was actually luck and what wasn't. Like the fact that our curse teams ended up placing top 4 was complete like luck. We had no systems in place. We weren't a good team at all. And we would just essentially like go into like playoff games more confident, and like we would just be more in the moment than like, for example, CLG, which is why we would beat them all the time. Whereas like when Peter came in, like he was able to actually give us some type of like fundamentals where we could all have like something that we could do that was applicable to multiple different games, so that we would be able to like understand how we're going to take an objective beforehand. And obviously not everyone bought in, which is like a huge problem. Obviously, if people don't respect your coach, then the systems that he puts in place are not going to fucking work, because people are not going to be thinking that that's relevant information. Like they're going to be like, oh, why do I need to fucking, like, let's say the example I just used with like the system of a minute and a half beforehand, Harry's understanding how much gold they're going to be able to generate or what items they're going to have before Drake. Like what happens if they just think that that's fucking useless, and they just think that is like not relevant information, or it's like a little kid thing to do, or like or like they just don't want to actually go through the steps every single time. Well, then the system's not going to fucking work. But I feel like Peter was actually good about trying to instill some of these things, and I think this is like the reason why Nelson got picked up by G2. It's not like he's like coached some like shit team in LEC. Clearly he had a tryout with G2 where they had a scrim block, and he was able to provide a different perspective on like how he sees a lot of the situations they got into game, and they probably the players probably just thought it was useful. You hear Yanko's talking about it. He's like having this different perspective of different ways that we could approach the game or approach these different situations is healthy for our team, and this is what we needed, and that's why Nelson is here, right? Like, I think that there's not enough coaches within LCS that actually have this, this idea. And, you know, it's part of the reason why I don't even respect most coaches in LCS. Like, I don't even know what they do. But when I look at, like, what's happening in the games, it's really hard for me to feel like people actually have all the intangibles needed to be a coach. Like, how do you get people to buy into a system? Can you create a system? Do you understand the game on a high enough level? It feels like every single coach is deficient majorly in one area. And I can tell just based off the quality of LCS, like the fact that I've been asked to be a head coach of a team should show you that, like, and I have zero experience. Like, I know that I'm deficient in a bunch of these areas. Like, I am aware of my own deficiencies that I would have as a coach. But like, if they're asking me, then what the fuck are the other options?